Welcome, everyone, and thank you for standing by. At this time, I'd like to inform all participants that your lines will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference call. If you would like to ask a question at that time, please press star 1 on your phone and record your first name so we know who to introduce. Today's conference call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the meeting over to our first speaker, Ms. Earlene Dowell. Thank you, ma'am. You may begin.
Thank you, Bridget. Good afternoon, and thank you to Lisa Glover-West from the U.S. Census Bureau for hosting our webinar. On behalf of the U.S. Census Bureau and the Local Employment Dynamics Partnership, in collaboration with the Council for Community and Economic Research and the Labor Market Information Office, welcome to the June LED webinar, COVID-19 Demographic and Economic Resources Using Census Data, with our presenters, Andrew Hait and myself, Earlene Dowell. The Census Bureau has released an interactive Data Hub resource page on COVID-19. The resource page is designed to help federal agencies, businesses, and communities make decisions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Andy will show users how to navigate through this interactive Data Hub and identify other helpful resources. During the second half of this webinar, I will show examples on how LEHD products have been utilized in answering questions about the workforce during the coronavirus pandemic. Andy Hait is an economist and serves as the Data Product and Data User Liaison in the Economic Management Division at the U.S. Census Bureau. With over 30 years of service at the Bureau, Andy advises on economic data products and conducts data user training and outreach for economic census and the Census Bureau's other monthly, quarterly, and annual economic survey programs. He also is the lead designer and coordinates development of Census Business Builder, an innovative data tool that presents selected demographic, business, and other data in a user-friendly, map-based interface. Andy holds a bachelor's degree in economics at Syracuse University and has a master's certificate in project management from George Washington University. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Earlene Dowell, and I'm a program analyst for the Data Users Trade and Outreach Branch. I've been promoting the Longitudinal Employment Household Dynamics program for over 10 years. I received my master's degree in communication and a bachelor's degree in public relations from Hawaii Pacific University. With that, I welcome Andy.
Great. Thank you so much, Earlene. So again, my name is Andy Hait. So today we are going to do a couple of things. First thing I'm going to do is walk through the COVID-19 Data Hub that Earlene referred to in her intro. This application, this platform, was released in mid-May, and it's designed to present selected Census Bureau demographic and business data that planners and emergency managers and a wide variety of other users can use to better understand the potential impacts to their communities of the COVID-19 pandemic and to hopefully help in the recovery from this. After I finish with the demo of the COVID-19 Data Hub, I am going to very briefly talk about 3 additional programs that are currently not available in the Hub, but we actually are planning on adding. And that's a really important point that I want to say right now. As I walk through the COVID Hub demo, I would encourage you all to think about the data that you'd want to see in the Hub, and if there's anything that we currently don't have in the Data Hub that you would like us to add, please let us know. This application, this data resource, has already been updated twice. We have an update planned actually for Thursday, tomorrow, actually, I'll correct that, on Monday. We pushed it off to Monday, but we definitely plan additional updates. So to get us started, I just want to very briefly sort of introduce the Census Bureau. I'm sure for the vast majority of you on the call, this slide is not only familiar, but it's maybe a little boring. You already know that we do so much more than simply count the U.S. population every 10 years. We conduct more than 130 censuses and surveys that include the decennial census, but also include demographic surveys like the American Community Survey and business programs like the Census of Governments and the Economic Census. For the vast majority of you who I would typically think of as power users of our data tool, of our data, providing easy access to the information is nice, but you all probably have, the experience and expertise to be able to navigate the more complex data tools that we have, to be able to download and access the entirety of the databases that we provide. But you are, unfortunately, the minority. The vast majority of our data users are people who have very little awareness of the Census Bureau's data and yet still have a real documented need to be able to use this type of information to help them make decisions. As we were moving into the COVID-19 pandemic, as it was really starting to get bad, we started receiving data requests from a number of U.S. federal government agencies, HUD, FEMA, CDC, et cetera, a wide variety of organizations. Even some local state emergency management agencies started contacting the Census Bureau wanting data about the demographics of the areas that were likely going to be impacted by COVID-19 in their communities. After the third or fourth data request, we realized that we needed to do something that presented those selected statistics that those organizations and federal agencies were asking for in a very user-friendly and yet still quite powerful kind of a way. So what we ended up with is something called the COVID-19 Data Hub. And this tool actually resides on a COVID-19 resource page on census.gov. Let me get out here right now, and we'll actually go live, and I'll show you this platform. So to get to the COVID-19 resource page, here's the main Census Bureau homepage. If I now scroll down, right over here on the left-hand side is the COVID-19 pandemic resource page image. When I click on that image, I come to the COVID-19 resource page. On this resource page, we have a number of resources. First, we have a link to the COVID-19 Data Hub. We are currently in version 1.2, and as I mentioned, version 1.3 will be going live on Monday. In addition, we have some additional data programs here that we'll talk a little bit about after I do the demo, including a couple of brand new surveys. The business formation statistics has actually been around for quite a while, but the recent update to convert this data into a weekly data program just fairly recently occurred. And these are some really interesting data on business formations, startups, new licenses, etc. We also created and received approval for conducting a special small business pulse survey that coincides with a household pulse survey. And the information for those two programs is available on this page as well. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, we have links into Census Business Builder, as well as some deep links, direct data files from the American Community Survey, which is featured prominently on the COVID Hub. Moving back up to the top of the page, if I click on the link, I'm now going to launch the actual COVID-19 Data Hub. This hub was created for us by Esri, and it is divided into 5 main components. At the very top of the COVID-19 Hub are 4 key statistics that we all sort of think of when we think about vulnerable populations. People who are age 65 and over, and the total uninsured population. We also then included some statistics on the number of businesses at the national level. There's about 7.8 million employer businesses. This is from our County Business Patterns program, and about 25 million self-employed people. When the hub first went live, we only had the employer business data in this tool, but based upon feedback that we received from users, we decided to add the data on self-employed people because, again, they are just as, some might even argue, more likely to be impacted by the COVID-19 business closures than employer businesses. When you then scroll down, you come to what we call the impact report. And this is a dashboard that presents some selected statistics from the American Community Survey, from county business patterns, and from our non-employer statistics program. The COVID-19 Impact Planning Report is available in a 2-page design, and I'm going to click on over here to open it in its own tab so we can see it full screen. When the platform opens, it automatically is going to default to New York State, which is, many would argue, was where COVID-19 really started getting bad. On the left-hand side, we can see some key facts across the top: total population, number of households in New York State, the average household size, et cetera, as well as some business data, some demographic data on poverty, and some risk factors data. Number of households that have people with a disability, number of households with population that are 65 and over who are living alone, and the number of households without a vehicle at their disposal. These statistics, again, are all shown at the state level. And if I go ahead and click on one of these statistics, we get a pop-up that sometimes just gives us the straight number, but other times actually produces some additional statistics. So right now we're looking at number of non-employer businesses for 20 selected industries. When we first began work on this project, we received a list of types of businesses that were likely to be the ones that were most going to be impacted by COVID-19. So these are self-employed people, personal care services, which includes things like nail salons and hair salons, child daycare centers. These are the home-based daycare centers, 51,000 home-based daycare centers. However, as this pandemic has changed, we know that these industries that are being displayed might not be the best industries to choose. So as you use this tool, I would encourage you all to send us feedback on the types of businesses that have been chosen here. So for example, we all know that restaurants certainly are one of the types of businesses that has been being most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's a lot of other businesses as well. So this report is completely interactive. It also has a second page. So if I click on the down arrow, I then get some additional socioeconomic and demographic data. Things like language spoken at home, poverty status, poverty levels, some additional population facts, some data on Hispanic origin and race, that this was actually added in version 1.1, and some information on school enrollment and population without health insurance coverage. And you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner of the platform, we can go in and actually choose a particular county within a state. So if I was interested in looking at the data specifically for Bronx County, New York, I could do that as well. And again, the dashboard now refreshes to show the data for Bronx County, New York. All the states and every county is presented in this tool. Going back over to the hub, let's scroll down and see the next section of the report, of the actual hub, and that is this demographic and economic analysis maps. These are comprehensive maps showing 8 basic statistics that we thought were very important to provide additional detail than what's up in the dashboard itself. So this very first map is looking at the number of employer businesses. The map is showing average annual payroll per employment as the color, and the size of the circle is based upon the number of businesses. That's map number 1. Map number 2 is those self-employed people, the non-employer businesses. And then as we cycle through the other maps, we come to some of our American Community Surveys. So this is a map showing percent of population, percent of households with less than $75,000 in household income. Now, as you can see, these maps automatically default to the state level, but as I zoom in on the map will refresh and will begin to show counties. And if I keep drilling down, it will allow me actually to get all the way down to census tract level data. So for those of you who thought the state and county data in the dashboard was nice, these maps actually have the data all the way down, or at least the American Community Survey data, all the way down to the tract level. Now, not only in the dashboard, but in this map application as well, all of the information in here can be shared and can be incorporated into your own platforms. we've loaded all of the information you're going to see in this dashboard into Esri's Living Atlas. And as you can see, I can actually share this map collection in the Living Atlas using ArcGIS. So for any of you who are GIS professionals and you want to incorporate this kind of information into your own COVID-19 platforms, we've done that with this particular tool. Now, where the first two sections of the tool, of the dashboard, were created to make it really easy to visualize the data, the next two sections of the dashboard really start to speak to people being able to consume that data in a very user-friendly kind of a way, so they can incorporate the raw data into your own visualizations, into your own platform. So for example, if I were to click on ACS household income over here, I'm going to come into ArcGIS. It actually loads up ArcGIS for me, and I can now incorporate this entire layer that has been created all the way down to the track level in my own applications, in my own data products. I can zoom in on this map, be able to get to the more detailed data, etc. So this third section allows you to even more incorporate the detailed information, change the base map that you want to be able to view in this thing, to print this data, to download the raw information, etc. After the highlighted data set is then another area of the platform that includes some categorical data set searches. And the key difference between what is presented here versus what is presented in that above section is this section not only allows you to access the data in a map-based format as a feature layer, but also allows you to access the raw data in Microsoft Excel formats. And we provided links to every one of these data sets. I can go in, we're looking at the socioeconomic data from the ACS, language spoken at home, at the county and state level, average household size at the county and state level, etc. So these statistics are all now available to you as both a feature layer and as a Microsoft Excel file that allows you to be able to go in and incorporate this data directly into your platforms. So again, we're trying to make this information as useful and as accessible as it's physically possible. Now, at the very bottom of this entire platform, you'll notice that we do have some information about the ACS and about our accounting business patterns, and we have links to a few other Census Bureau websites that users might be interested in understanding the potential impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a link out to 2020 Census. We have a link to that brand new business formation statistics program that I mentioned earlier. We have a link to our new data.census.gov platform, as well as to Census Business Builder, on the map for emergency management, and finally to the CDC COVID-19 page. Now, the update that is going live on Monday will be incorporating the business formation statistics data right into this platform as its own dedicated section. So we've built an entire visualization, including a map and some charts that allows users to look at how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected business startups, and all that raw data is now available. So that was a very quick walkthrough of the COVID-19 hub. With that, let me jump back out to my presentation and just talk very briefly about those three last programs. So as I mentioned at the very start of my presentation, Business Formation Statistics is a program that has been around for quite some time. This is an annual program that provided information on business applications. Historically, the program has always provided information at the national and regional level, but as we were beginning to move into the COVID pandemic, we realized that business startups, business applications were really taking a hit. We were seeing a huge drop-off in the business applications in those first few weeks and months or so of the COVID-19 pandemic. So our senior managers at Census decided to expand the BFS to start producing weekly statistics that would show information on business applications not only at the national and regional level, but also by state. So what you're looking at right now is a screenshot of the BFS website. I have included the link here to the page for you to access it yourself. That shows some information on business applications where you can select the application type, you can select the state, and you can select the week of the year. Data are shown from 2019 to 2020 on the map, but information are available all the way back to 2007, which you can see in the chart at the bottom of the slide. So that's business formation statistics. Again, we've built a special display of this data to be incorporated into the COVID-19 hub. Now, the next program that I want to very briefly talk about is this new Small Business Pulse Survey. The Small Business Pulse Survey was, again, created to try to understand what the potential impacts are of the COVID-19 pandemic on small businesses. How are they reacting to the pandemic? Or what's happening in terms of their operations? Have they had to make changes to the way they run their business to be able to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic? So this is a very slide. I would encourage you all to kind of check it out at your leisure. And this is a visualization of a screenshot of the visualization that has been created for the Small Business Pulse Survey. Right now, this is available separate from the COVID-19 hub, but there have been some discussions again about incorporating the Small Business Pulse Survey into our COVID-19 hub in the same way as we're going to be incorporating the business formation statistics. So as you can see, the types of questions that we asked these small businesses in the sample was how they were impacted overall. How did the COVID-19 pandemic affect their revenues? Were they forced to temporarily close? Have they had to have changes in their employment? Have they had to start to provide pickup or carry-out or delivery service? Did they receive any kind of assistance, or have they missed any loan payments or other types of payments? These are types of questions that are being asked on this weekly Small Business Pulse Survey. And as you can see, we are now producing statistics from this. As you can see on the map, data are shown at the state level, and it is pretty amazing to compare how the impacts are not only from state to state, but by sector. So, for example, on the right-hand side, we're looking at overall how has your business been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. No surprise to probably most of us, NAICS Sector 72, which is accommodation food services, is the one that has had the largest impact on their business operations, whereas NAICS 22, which is the utilities sector, is the one that has had the least impact. It's sort of hard to imagine how a utility business might be impacted, but I'm sure there were some that were. So that's a Small Business Pulse Survey. In a similar kind of way, we also created a Household Pulse Survey. This survey, again, provides similar information to the Business Pulse Survey in that it asks households, how are you being impacted? Did you have loss of employment income? Did you experience any kind of food scarcity because of the pandemic? Did you have to delay medical care that you would have normally have had done? That dentist appointment that I was supposed to have had a month ago that I couldn't go to, because of the pandemic. These types of statistics are shown in here, and just like the Business Pulse Survey, this is a weekly program that, again, is presenting some key information about the impacts of this pandemic. So those were the three programs I wanted to quickly summarize. To just kind of summarize for you all before I turn it back over to Earlene, this COVID-19 Hub presents some selected demographic and business data. Again, we would really appreciate feedback from you all about the statistics that are in the Hub and the functionality that we have provided. And we've had these three new programs, Business Formation Statistics, or BFS, the Small Business Pulse Survey, and the Household Pulse Survey, that is going to be presenting and providing statistics on how businesses and households are being impacted by the pandemic. With that, Earlene, I'd like to turn it back over to you. If anybody has any questions, we'll take some at the end of the presentation after Earlene is done. But if you don't have my email address already, here it is. So, Earlene, back to you.
Thanks, Andy. I'll just get the ball from you. If you could pass that to me, please. Okay, well, this is part 2. Thank you, Andy, so much for such valuable information. I'm actually going to try to cut my part shorter than anticipated just because I want to be able to allow more time to have questions answered. So I will be showing you a couple examples of how people have been using loads data, specifically the On the Map for emergency management and On the Map, and how they're using it for examples for COVID-19. So hopefully most of you know all about LEHD and LED. So LEHD is the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics program, and then LED is the Local Employment Dynamics, which is a partnership. States send us their data, which is the unemployment insurance wage records, along with their QCEW, and we combine that with censuses and surveys to create this very innovative data tools and data sets. We currently have 5 data sets and 7 data tools for easy access. Here is a screenshot with some links to all of the different data sets and data tools that we have that you, once the webinar is over, a recording and the PowerPoint will be available to you. So first of all, I'm going to show an example that was used for used with On the Map for emergency management, and currently On the Map for emergency management has hurricanes, floods, winter storms, disaster areas, wildfires, and demographics for the economic data. And it's actually on the link to the COVID hub for easy access. It gives us different vulnerabilities, such as the social vulnerabilities that comes from our American Community Survey, our physical vulnerabilities that comes from Decennial, and then our economical vulnerabilities that comes from the loads data. So this is one of the examples that I wanted to talk about. South Dakota recently wrote an article, and they used the loads data to track where workers from a large pork plant in Minnehaha County, South Dakota resided. The data showed that many that worked in Minnehaha also lived in Minnehaha, but the next largest numbers of workers resided in Lincoln County. The data also found a number of Native Americans who worked at the plant and resided on nearby reservations where there is a lack of medical resources to a vulnerable population. So if you want to go live with me, the best way would be to go on the map.ces.census.gov/em. And I would also like to mention that our data tools play very nicely with Chrome and Firefox. Okay, so I went ahead and had it already pulled up, and currently what we're looking at, this map on the right-hand side is FEMA disaster declaration areas are all in orange with the orange life preservers. The red flames are fires, and the yellow houses are flooding. So we get our data from NOAA, also the Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior, and then FEMA, and then census data. So the emergency declaration for South Dakota was actually EM3475. So if I type in EM3475, it comes up and it says Federal Disaster Declaration. So I'm going to click on that. And then it zooms into South Dakota. And now we can look at the different vulnerabilities. So we can see under race, if I click on race, it'll show me the different races that live in Minnehaha County or in South Dakota. And if I click on American Indian and Alaska Native alone, the map updates to the right. But then I just want to look at Minnehaha. So if I click on this event area on the left-hand side and I change the event area to counties, and then automatically Minnehaha is right there at the top. So I'll go ahead and click that and then click select. So now the map zooms into Minnehaha, and then it shows us all the disability status by age. So if I click on that, that tells us what's 65 years or over. And then you can see the map update. So anything that's in the darkest blue is between 176 to 578 people. You can also go down and we can look at other things such as years structure was built, which is not really handy for COVID-19, but this map is also for natural disasters. So if we're looking at a natural disaster such as a hurricane, which it is hurricane season, we can look at when the houses were built, and we have data all the way back to 1939. And then on the map doesn't have tornadoes, earthquakes, viruses, lava flows, but if it's an emergency disaster declaration area, we have the data. So for example, during a tornado, it would be helpful to know about how many mobile homes might be affected in Minnehaha if a tornado came through. Okay, so going on the map, and we're going to continue to look at the Minnehaha. And the best way to get to on the map is if you Googled on the map, and it's all one word, and then maybe even typed in census, and that would bring you to our on the map. So I've already typed in Minnehaha into the search box, and all of our data tools are very intuitive. So if I click on Minnehaha, a pop-up box comes up and it tells me what the selected area is and how many square miles are there. And it also tells us what the census blocks, how many census blocks are in that area. So I'll click on that blue underline, and then we can look at the area profile, which is an overview of what's going on in Minnehaha. So I'm going to click on the data to 2016 because that's the data that was used in the article. And then I'm just going to show you those that work in Minnehaha. So I went ahead and jumped to the destination analysis. And in this screenshot, it shows us, just like the article said, that Lincoln County was the second county that was that had most workers that worked in Minnehaha. That's where they lived. And then we have spokes that show you where people are traveling from to work in the selected area. So here are all the counties that were where people that work in Minnehaha, this is the counties that they live in. In the screenshot, I had the spoke overlay pulled up, and that just gives you a visual of where they're coming from. And then the other thing is that you can click on the base map at the top, and then we can even see where the tribal lands are by clicking on label and outline fill. And if I zoom out just a bit, it'll show us where those areas are. And currently, we're just looking at the top 10 counties that work in, well, we're looking at the top 10 counties that people live at that work in the selected area. But you can go ahead and click on 25 to 50. And if you do that, that just gives you a visual that what the chances are for those that might be affected by this pork power plant. So just giving you a visual of how that would be. Now in the second example, it was an example that Zillow wrote an article regarding how people are moving from one area to the other. Let me see. So in another article, we saw that Zillow wrote an article about rapid movements towards remote work arrangements in the wake of the pandemic. And this raises an interesting question on the future of urban workers. And will workers place less value on living near a downtown job center? So though it's too soon to answer this question, Zillow found that 8 million U.S. workers that live in cities travel to the suburbs to work. And in the article, it talked about Riverside, Tampa, and Orlando are a few metropolitan areas that were mentioned, that people that live in the center of downtown are traveling outside to the suburban areas to work. So let's go ahead and try to do that one. And I'm just going to type in Tampa and then Tampa City. Alrighty. And then so I'm going to use our inflow-outflow. And that analysis tells us how many people are traveling into the area to work, how many people live and work within the area, and how many people travel out of the area to work. So here you can see that there are about 140,663 people that live in Tampa, but about 85,000 of them, 85,168 are traveling out of the area to work. So they're going to different suburbs to work instead of staying downtown. So basically it's just saying that where you live, you don't have to be close to the downtown center for jobs. It seems that jobs are actually growing outside of the area now. So with that, I really cut my presentation down, but I hope that you were able to see how valuable LEHD has been to also find out and ask questions regarding the COVID-19. So with that, let me go back to our PowerPoint so that you can have Andy's and my information. All right, and we appreciate everybody tuning in to our webinar today. And operator, we are ready for questions. Please keep your questions pertaining to the presentation, and if you could ask only one question with one follow-up question.
Thank you. Once again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your phone. You only need to record your first name when prompted so we know who to introduce. Again, that is *1 if you have questions or comments. Please record your first name so we know who to introduce. If you need to withdraw your request, you can press *2. And one moment while we get our first response. Thank you.
So while we're waiting for the first question, I just want to invite everyone back next month to continue the LED webinar series on July 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when Pramod Sambidi presents Analyzing Job-to-Job Flows in the Houston metropolitan area.
And our first response, I'm sorry, I hope I heard your first name correctly, is LaClay. Your line is open.
Yes, that was correct. Thank you. I had a question about the COVID-19 impact planning report, and I was wondering, I'm sorry if I'm asking a question that was answered already, but I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to see what those figures were pre-COVID-19 and sort of where things are now and how they progress. And when I say figures, I'm referring specifically to the totals, like the total employees for businesses, the total annual payroll, the total employer establishments. I'm wondering, if on the planning report you're able to see how those numbers may have changed in the past few months.
Right. So fabulous question. And actually, I'm really glad you asked it because we've actually had that question and a request to put some additional information in the hub because of that. So in building the hub, we decided to show the latest available data that we had. And in some cases, that's data from the 2017 programs and sometimes from 2018 programs. So it's historical data. We have had some requests to put in some even more timely data to see how those numbers are changing because of COVID-19. As you probably already know, the most timely surveys that we conduct at the Census Bureau, our monthly surveys, primarily are shown only at the national level. And because we know that COVID-19 is impacting some communities in a different way than others, national level data wouldn't be quite as helpful. So we are working on having some more current time series, more timely data. But we are also considering adding some additional historical data. So going back even before the period that we're showing in the hub. So, for example, if you knew that a community, a particular county, let's say in rural Virginia, was already seeing a decline in their employment in a certain industry over the previous 5 years, seeing that community continue to decline after COVID-19 hit would be sort of continuing the same trend. Whereas if the opposite were to occur, you have a community that has been growing over the previous 5 years and then because of this has seen a marked drop off, then you could then equate that change to more to the COVID-19 change. So yeah, we are working on adding some additional historical data to the hub as well as pulling in some more timely data, probably from the Bureau of Labor Statistics quarterly census of employment and wages, since their data are a little bit more timely in terms of employment than the Census Bureau data is. So, yeah, great question.
Got it. Thank you for that. And if I could, just one follow-up is with the information that is provided, if I'm trying to accurately characterize the reporting, is it, the best way to say it is, this is data that ranges from, the most updated data that ranges from 2017 until now, or, how do you accurately characterize the figures that are included?
Yeah, we have source statements in the tool that identify what year the program data are from, County Business Patterns 2017, non-employer data from 2018. And really, this is kind of giving us a picture of what our local economies were prior to COVID-19. This is how many businesses that were likely being impacted. Whether those businesses were negatively impacted, positively impacted, or not impacted at all, of course, that you'll then see when you start to look at the more recent data. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response will come from Paul. Your line is open.
Hi, I had a question about the highlighted data maps. I was looking at those, and they say that they provide tract level data, but I'm not seeing in the highlighted data sets the ability to change the map to tract level data. Is that sold out on Monday's update?
So the tract level data does vary from data set to data set. If you're looking at one of the first few highlighted data sets, the county business patterns or the non-employer statistics data sets, Those ones are only shown down to the county level because we don't show data down to census tracts. So that would be why you're not seeing it there. For the other highlighted data sets, the data sets from the American Community Survey, you should be able to drill down to the tract level data in those additional data sets. If you're having difficulties with that, my email address is here on the screen. Go ahead and send me an email and we'll actually kind of walk through it together.
Does that conclude your question?
No follow-up, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Our next response will come from Guy. Your line is open.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for the presentation. I had a question about the industry data on the Business Pulse survey. Is it possible to get those specific questions answered just by each industry? For example, how does the restaurant industry feel it's going to be in 6 months versus how does professional business services feel the recovery is going to be in 6 months? Do you see what I mean? Just a different way to slice that data. Is that available even at the state level?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you noticed in the visualization, the screenshot that I included on my slide, there's 3 menus at the top of that data tool. One that allows you to choose the geography, one that allows you, choose the geography, choose the question, and you can then see in the bar chart the sector. In fact, in that one visualization, you could see how NAICS Sector 22 utilities was saying that they had very, very little impact to their business because of the pandemic, whereas NAICS Sector 72 had a huge impact. I could then change the question to one of the other questions that were asked. Did I have to apply for assistance to help my business recover? And you could then see that data broken out by 2-digit NAICS code by state. So yeah, absolutely, it is definitely available cross-tabbed. Question by geography by NAICS sector.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Josephine. Your line is open.
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi. I'm just an ordinary citizen who's been following census information because I'm interested. So my question is for Andy. You indicated that the information was available by state and then by county. I happen to live in Massachusetts where nothing is done by county. It's done by towns and cities. So what's the best way for me to get information about my city?
Yeah, so while we only included data in the COVID-19 hub at the state and county level in that impact planning report, in the dashboard, you do have the ability to drill from state to county to city and then to census tract using some of the other, like using the map resource. And then one thing I did not mention in my presentation is scattered throughout the application are deep links from the COVID-19 Data Hub into the other resources, resource tools that we have at the Census Bureau to allow you to drill down even further. So in your example, you could look at data at the county level for Barnstable County, let's say, Massachusetts, but if you then wanted to look specifically at the city of Brewster, Massachusetts, you could then go to that deep link, drill down from Barnstable County down to the city of Brewster or town of Brewster, and actually then be able to see that more detailed data. Because we know that there's a lot more information available at the county level, certainly business data available at the county level because of our privacy rules, than there are at the place level, the city and town and village and boroughs level. That's why we stopped there. But yes, there are definitely more detailed information available. It's interesting that you mentioned Massachusetts. We vacation every single year on Cape Cod, and I really thought a lot about whether or not we wanted to show the data only at the county level or drill down, because as you so eloquently said, county means almost nothing in the New England states. It's cities and towns
Right.
that matter. So, absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response will come from Ben. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. A question about the household pulse survey. At what point are you all going to release more detailed data on race beyond the kind of really high level, not even including all of the OMB category groups you have now, hopefully similar to what we get through ACS?
Right. So that's a great question, and it really sort of speaks to how long we anticipate conducting these really timely weekly surveys, and whether the content that we collect is going to change over time. In getting the OMB approval to do a survey in such a timely fashion, in my 33 years at the Census Bureau, I have never seen a survey go through the OMB clearance process the way that these two programs, the Household Pulse and the Small Business Pulse survey did. It really speaks to the understanding that we really need detailed information. And so for the Household Pulse survey, when the clearance went through, they cleared it for just publishing, or collecting and publishing those broad race and ethnicity kinds of categories. I know that there already are discussions about extending the Small Business Pulse survey to cover a longer period of time than what it was originally planned. I think the same thing is planned for the Household Pulse survey. Whether that also then involves some changes, some tweaks to the questions that we're asking, we will have to see on that. I will say on the race and ethnicity type question, the minute you want to drill down from, let's say, Asian to one of the more detailed categories, the sample size that is needed to be able to publish accurate data for those more detailed categories starts to grow. And, if you want data in a really timely fashion, you have to keep the sample size small enough that we can then actually collect the data on a weekly basis and actually publish it. So it's always we're always trying to strike that happy balance between collecting the detailed information that users want and being able to actually conduct the survey that we have to do just to get it done. So, yeah, I'm very hopeful that both of these programs will live beyond August, which is right now what the current plan is for them to end.
Thanks. I'll just note that at this point, you're sort of lumping in American Indian, Pacific Islanders, and biracial into another category, which I think is kind of problematic for those communities.
Correct.
So hopefully we can, but just to clarify, so at this point you're only asking, you're not asking about detailed race at all in the survey, you're only asking about the high-level questions. Okay,
correct.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Our next response will come from Martin. Your line is open.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful presentation. So much information here. My question was about the Household Pulse survey also. So who did you tap for that? Was it just like any sense of numbers? What's your sample size? And was it all across the United States or in certain areas?
So like our other sample surveys that we conduct at the Census Bureau, the Household Pulse survey and the Small Business Pulse survey are statistical random samples. Yes, they do cover the entire United States. We did not sample from some communities and not from others because that wouldn't give you an accurate representation of what's going on nationwide. It is a statistical random sample. There is some follow-up. So when we ask a household or a business the question and they don't respond, we're trying to do some follow-up so we can get good responses to these questions. To be quite frank, I don't know what the sample size is of the Household Pulse survey. I know the Small Business Pulse survey is 100,000 small businesses. And we specifically sampled small businesses following the SBA definition of what a small business is, so that to sort of recognize that it's likely that these small guys are the ones who are being potentially impacted more than the larger businesses are, although that's probably not always true when you think about industries like airlines and other ones that are big, huge companies and are likely being impacted even more than some small guys are. But I did provide the information, a link to the Household Pulse Survey program page in our PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to be definitely sharing those materials with you all shortly after the presentation today. So I would encourage you all to to check that out.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Hoda. Your line is open.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much for a great presentation. My question, I think, has been answered here and there, but just wanted to confirm, what is the lowest level of geography, the finest level of geography that's available on the hub?
Tract. Census tract level data is the finest level of geography that is shown, and the tract level data is only shown for the data variables that come from the American Community Survey. So those demographic, socioeconomic, and housing related data variables in the hub are the ones where we do provide drill down to the census tract level. The business data, the employer business and the non-employer self-employed business data are only available down to the county level.
Awesome. And I just have one follow-up question. Is that available from ACS 5-year data or ACS 1-year data?
So because we wanted to be able to show small geographies, we are pulling the data from the ACS 5-year estimates. As you know, I'm sure the 1-year estimates only cover geographies of 65,000 population or more, and there are certainly a lot of counties and certainly lots and lots of census tracts that have less than 65,000 people who live there. So yeah, we are pulling from the ACS 5-year data.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response is from Bo. Your line is open.
Hi, I just want to thank you, Lisa, Andrew, and Earlene. I learned a lot. This is my first time connected to it. I wish to compare between LA County and Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about these two?
So certainly in the COVID-19 hub, you could go in and choose California from the menu. You could then choose Los Angeles County, and then you could choose Orange County, or for that matter, any county, and you could compare sort of side by side demographic and economic characteristics of those two counties.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, on the map-based interface, that second part of the COVID hub that actually displays the data on the map, you could browse that data literally right on the map. You could click on LA County and see what the percentage of the population that has less than $65,000 in household income, and then compare that to Orange County. You could then drill in and look at the more detailed geographies to see how those two counties vary. Are there pockets of lower income in one county that maybe aren't in another county? So yes, you could certainly do that kind of comparison using the tool. In fact, that comparison is exactly why we created this. We knew that planners and decision makers were going to need to be able to focus their efforts on areas that were likely being impacted more by the pandemic than other areas. And the only way that you can do that comparison is to be able to have the information to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response is from Ruth. Your line is open.
Yes, thank you, Andy and Earlene. My company, Veranda Limited, is agriculture, and we're growing loblolly pine trees. And I don't know how the surveys are addressing agriculture and farms, not necessarily tree farms, but in assessing impact. Life insurances has been very important, not only because of the weather, but because of the loss of income and business. So that could be added to the surveys if you're doing agriculture and farming, because it has had a big impact on us of what kind of insurance that we have and, what percentage or whatever you're going to ask of that particular coverage. And then when it comes to surveying and questions for farmers, as far as the cash flow, whether the debt analysis before the problem of COVID, whether farms that were selling, pickup or wanted to continue whatever they were doing, pick your own, with social distancing. That's another question that farmers were having to answer, not myself as tree farmers necessarily, but other farmers. I'm speaking out for the farmers at the moment. And and if the PPP that was given out, when you had to select a category, there was nothing there for agriculture. Then more money went in for agriculture. We had to reapply and seek that. So that's another effect of the COVID for farms. And just switching up, and then I'm involved in an after-school nonprofit program. So since school was out, we weren't able to accommodate the children for after-school programs. So I don't know how you're surveying nonprofits and after-school programs. And that kind of information is necessary because now we're being approached for the after-school program to write grants, apply for monies to now have the internet service and other things, social distancing for the children when they will return to school and then come to us for that. So that's my input for the surveys and the responses. And thank you both for all that you've told us, and looking forward to your next webinar.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So maybe I'll just quickly respond to the two parts. On your second question about nonprofits, the Census Bureau does collect data on businesses that are profit and nonprofit. We don't actually use the term profit nonprofit. We use the term taxable or tax exempt, businesses that are subject to federal income tax versus businesses that are exempt from federal income tax. But when the sample was drawn for the Small Business Pulse Survey, we did include in that sample nonprofits, these businesses that are exempt from federal income tax. So they are, in fact, covered in the data. They aren't separately tabulated that way, but they are actually included. But you raise a very, very good point that, to be quite frank, I hadn't really thought too much about agriculture. As you probably already know, the Census Bureau in nearly all of our programs do not publish data on agriculture because USDA does. U.S. Department of Agriculture, through the National Agricultural Statistics Service, they are the statistical agency that publishes data on farms. And that's why we did not include any data on farms in the COVID-19 hub and in a lot of other resources because, again, we don't publish data on agriculture, with very few exceptions at the Census Bureau. But you raise a very interesting point, and to be quite frank, I think I'm actually going to contact my friends at USDA NASS to see if there's any way of us pulling in some of their agriculture data into the hub so that we could show the impact not only on the traditional types of businesses, but also on farms, logging, sawmill operations, et cetera. So, yeah, that was a great question. Thank you so much.
Good, and just have one follow-up because no farm, no food. I'm just going to make that statement.
Absolutely.
And we all know that, but, we're the forgotten ones, but then we're the essential workers when it's time because my loblolly trees are used for paper making. So the shortage of paper towels and toilet paper and that, even though it's a 12 to 15-year period, when the hurricane comes or anything else and they're gone, what are we going to do? So that sample size that you talked about earlier is very important of the different kinds of farming and the various sample sizes within those farms. So, and then I know there was a mortality census done in the 1890s when all that happened before, and I didn't know if that's being considered at all.
Yeah, I don't think that we are at Census producing any statistics on mortality in that kind of a way. That is normally a statistic that we would refer users to the National Center for Health Statistics, NCHS. They are the agency that has the most detailed information on health-related topics like mortality. But it's an interesting question for this COVID hub as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Emma. Your line is open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So the data that you get on the wildfires, where do you get that data from, especially concerning California?
That data comes from the Department of Interior and the Department of Agriculture.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Nadu. Your line is open.
Did you say Madhu?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
That's okay. Just checking. I had a question about the household pulse data. When you try, how much can you drill down on that? Because when I'm trying to get information specific to the communities that I want to see, I'm only seeing it by region. So for the Chicago area, it says Chicago, Naperville, Elgin, and that seems to be the farthest I can go in terms of drilling down on that.
Yeah, on these really detailed weekly household pulse and business pulse survey, to be able to publish quality data with a reasonable sample size, the level of geography that we could drill down to is a little bit less than what we would in some other programs. So on the business pulse survey, the data are only being shown down to the state level. And in the household pulse survey, as you've pointed out, the data are being shown down to metropolitan area level. So that's when you mentioned region, that what you just pointed out was the Chicago metro. I don't think they are producing data below the metro level, but I think if you checked out that pulse survey website, you might get some more information. I'm almost positive it's not shown below the metro.
It's not. And then for that metropolitan area, when it says Chicago, Naperville, Elgin, does that mean everything from Chicago all the way to Elgin and Naperville? Is that the entire region, or is it specifically those cities?
So the title of a metropolitan area refers to the three largest central cities that comprise that metropolitan area. So yes, it is not, when we talk about a metropolitan area, we're not just talking about those three cities. We're talking about the counties that those three cities are located in, and sometimes additional counties. In the back of the presentation is my email address. If you want to send me an email, I will send you a link to where you can go in and look at what the definitions of the metro areas are, because I can tell you the Chicago, Naperville, Elgin metro is way more than just those three counties, those three cities. It's a huge metropolitan area. I think it's like 20-something counties that make up that metro. So yes, I'm more than happy to send you a link where you can understand what are the counties that comprise that metro.
And just as a follow-up to that, I have one more question. So the data that you're seeing, the week 1 through 6, this is since the pandemic began and up until week 6, and the numbers are just the percentage of people impacted, like let's say loss of employment, food scarcity. That's the percentage of people that are affected by those factors?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Neil. Your line is open.
Thank you. So as far as accessing the data, do you have plans to have a type of API for data analysts to easily access the data through their programming portals rather than going onto the website and downloading an Excel file, for instance?
So the short answer is absolutely. There are all of the data that is already presented in the COVID Hub and the data from these other 3 programs that I mentioned. Most of the information that we talked about today is already available in an API. So the American Community Survey, the county business patterns data, the non-employer data, the local employment dynamics quarterly workforce indicators data that Earlene spoke of, those data sets are already available in the Census Bureau's data API. For the household pulse and small business pulse and business formation statistics data, those data sets are currently not yet, or I'll say not available in the API, but it is likely that we will at some point in time load them into the API. And that will especially be true if these programs live longer than the initial, couple of months that some of these really timely surveys were designed to be in place. We definitely recognize that making our data accessible in an application programming interface is really important for developers who want to be able to consume that data without having to archive and curate the information themselves by downloading it. So yeah, we definitely are working on that. It's not there right now, but we're working that way.
Oh, great. And just one follow-up question. So once the program ends, which I heard was August of this year, would this data still be available if it's not being used?
So historically at the Census Bureau, when we have a survey that ends, we don't actually take down the data, even though the survey may have stopped, because we recognize that people may still want to keep accessing that data even after the survey is no longer being conducted. The only time we really take data down in a case like that is when the survey that had ended was replaced with something else, where we don't want to have access anymore to that older survey because now there's something better. But usually, yes, we leave the data files up for an extended period of time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next response is from Rich. Your line is open.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Pretty straightforward question. I got on a little late, and could you please tell me what the plan is to make the slides available to us? Do we have to do something, or will you send them?
We will definitely be posting the PowerPoint slides, the recorded webinar, and the transcript. All 3 of those will be posted probably in a week or 2 after the presentation is done. If you would like, I can send you the PowerPoint file as well. You have my email address here on the screen. Just go ahead and send me an email, and I'll send you the PowerPoint file.
That would be great. I have trouble following, not just you, Andrew, but everybody when they go through PowerPoints like this. I'm just slower on the draw, and I'm always way behind. So it's easier for me to...
I am a little too.
Okay, thank you. I'll just send you an email and forward it. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Honey. Your line is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I was just wondering, I noticed that you pulled in the data from the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, and the CDC has a lot of other data sets having to do with situational awareness. And so I was wondering, it seems relevant for the COVID-19 dashboard that you would pull in some more of the CDC's like situational awareness data sets. I was wondering if there were any plans to integrate like that.
Yeah. It's a great question. When we first started work on the COVID-19 hub, there were plans to not only put access to Census Bureau data and resources on the hub, but data from other federal agencies and even in some cases non-federal organizations. For example, you probably know that Johns Hopkins University has been maintaining an amazing data product that provides information on hospitalizations and numbers of beds and number of deaths due to COVID-19, et cetera. They just sort of took it upon themselves to create this fabulous platform. In clearing the platform through our senior executives, the decision was made to not include some of those resources, but instead to provide links to them. So you probably noticed at the bottom of the COVID-19 hub, there is a link to the CDC page, and we are going to be putting more links on the COVID-19 resource page, not on the hub itself, but back on that resource page that the hub is linked to from. We are going to add some more links to those other programs because you're absolutely right. There's a wealth of information out there from other agencies that merged together with the census data could be very impactful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Minraj. Your line is open.
Did you say Raj?
Yes, sorry.
I have a question for Earlene. I was looking at your Tampa data. I would like to ask the question, can we couple housing data to working population inflows and outflows to downtown Tampa in view of the COVID-19 crisis, whether we have such housing data pre-COVID and now, and also whether if this happened, whether it is due to higher risk because of high population density in Tampa, or was it due to higher housing costs, or was it due to high crime rate, or is it because of better schools? And how does it compare to the census data of 1918 when we had the pandemic, whether there was more outflows to the suburbs than to the cities? Is it possible we could compare it? Thank you very much.
So the data comes from the states. And so we have been collecting data for some states since 1994. The data is just basically workforce data. It doesn't have residential data. Zillow goes ahead and they combine their data with our data to create, answers that they have questions to. But the data is specifically just workforce. So I can tell you how many people live in that area that are part of the workforce, and I can tell you how many people work in the selected area. And I can give you characteristics regarding the people in the area, but I cannot tell you how much the homes cost with our data. That would be combining data with other data. That you could do that, which Zillow does very well with. And in the PowerPoint, there is a link to the article, and then so there's a link to the article, and then if you read that article and how Zillow combined the information, and they looked at the housing costs for people that were moving out of the city to the suburbs. They looked at the age groups as well, because a lot of times they think that the majority of people that are moving out are those that are actually in the medium age where they're having children, so they're moving to the suburbs. But they found that a lot of people still live in the city and a lot of people work outside of the city. So that's just the data that they have. So unfortunately, I can't create something that we could answer all your questions, but we can answer some.
The follow-up question is, do you have data for the 1918 pandemic so we can study inflows of population to a downtown area and outflows from the downtown area, whether it is related to the pandemic or not? That's what I was looking for. Like, for example, New York City, they report now that more people are left New York City to live outside of New York City because of the high rate of infections, whether that was the case with Tampa, and what was the comparison with the 1918 flu pandemic?
So LEHD does not have that data. I'm not sure if there's an archive for that for census. Do you know, Andy?
I don't, Earlene. Sorry. That's a stumper.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you for your question. Bridget, we're going to take 2 more questions and then wrap things up, please.
Actually, it looks like we just have one last question in the queue right now. Our final question will be from Lucia. Your line is open.
Thank you so much. I'm actually serving the Bronx and Manhattan. I'm a partnership specialist for the U.S. Census, and I really want to thank you guys for the wealth of information you shared with us today. And I'm right at the epicenter of the pandemic, and we were affected in the Bronx specifically, where I served. We had a lot of deaths, and that actually had an impact. Even some of I know that Zillow report, I read about it, and it totally makes sense. But it also the teachers who work for the Department of Education in New York City, 1 in 5 of them are not thinking of returning to teach in September because of the pandemic. And there are a lot of other things. I work with a lot of nonprofits. In these nonprofits, they want to know, in terms of the racial disparity, they want to know what can they do and how can they service their community, because a lot of the death toll, the largest death toll, happen within the African American and the Latino communities in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. And I think what you're doing is a perfect example that I can use with my partners with the nonprofits to share with them. So I'm looking forward to actually on a weekly basis read and share with my partners. I think I heard Mr. David Craker. He's a wonderful individual who has been a mentor. I learned so much from you, David. If you're on the line, thank you. And that's basically I really want to thank you for what you're doing. And I think that the impact is going to be felt specifically in the schools when teachers do not want to return to those areas that were, that had the strongest strain of the COVID virus. They pretty much, it has impacted everyone. So anyway, thank you so much, and I will follow up on you guys on the report on a weekly basis and share with my partners.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you, and that was our final question. I'll turn it back to you for any closing remarks.
Thanks, Bridget. So we appreciate everyone, and we appreciate you all sticking around 30 minutes after the webinar was done. I would like to thank Lisa Glover-West for hosting our webinar, along with the Census Bureau, the LED partners, and C2ER and the LMI office for sponsoring our webinar. Join us next month again on July 22nd, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. when Pramod Sambivi presents Analyzing Job-to-Job Flows in the Houston metropolitan area. And thank you all, and have a good afternoon.
We thank you all for your participation in today's conference. That will conclude the call. You may now disconnect. Thank you.